Hello and welcome. So, I've been shopping today and I'm going to show you some things that I didn't buy today but have been bought previously, but for different reasons haven't made it into a video. And yeah, let's just talk about stuff and get going. So, in my last haul, I had this paper here that I got for Christmas. It is a Danish produced watercolor paper. It's 50% cotton and it's called Viking Iris 310. And the other version here is a mixed media paper. It's called Variant 316. And the more I use this paper, the more I love it. This one I have been testing with all of those, like these, the Koi brush pens, and my other water-based uh, dye watercolor pencils and pens and with and without brush pens, and it just works. It doesn't this paper doesn't pill, and you can layer it and do. And yeah, this is what I do when I watch movies and stuff. I doodle, and it also takes nail color just beautiful, and the watercolor paper works for it too. And um, I'm just so happy with this. But it might not be the most um, interesting thing for my viewer for me to use on my channel because I'm not sure how available this is outside of Denmark. So keep that in mind. But if you can get it, it's fantastic for a very reasonable price. Anyways, using these, I which I had this 48 set for quite a while, and all of them still work. They have pretty much had a very good shelf life. They still work. I think I've had them for 4 years or more. There was, I think that was the orange that had a little bit of they can get something. It looks like mold, but it's not. It's the dye that is crystallizing on the tip. That one I think had a little bit of that, and then we have this one. Um, this one didn't have a good shelf life. The nib is totally ruined. I have no idea why. I suspect that it's a chemical reaction between whatever the nib is made of and something in the ink. It's the only one that did this. It could be I got a dot. I don't know what. It still works. Um, except, of course, it doesn't give you a very defined line. So there's plenty of ink in there, but it's kind of useless. So when we were in town today, I actually bought a replacement. Strictly speaking, this is probably not a product that I will keep around. Not in the numbers I got him now. I got 48 of these. I got a set of Fabriano 15 um, brush pens. I got 30 Ecoline pens and tons and tons of that stuff. And it's not something I use very much, so but exactly the koi set I actually do like, so that was a maintenance buy, so to speak. And to stick with the paper, I want to use. I got some student grade paints I wanna use on the channel. And for student grade paints, I think it makes most sense to show them on student grade paper. And I've had a pad of this before. It's the Studio watercolor paper from Fabriano, as you can see. And it's only 25% cotton, but it's enough, and it's actually a quite decent and quite decently priced watercolor paper. So I thought this would be probably a better idea to use on the channel. And my previous pad was used up, so I bought this 20 by 40 It's actually not a pad, it's a block because it's glued on all four sides. And I bought cold pressed because I prefer cold press over hot pressed. This paper you can get in hot pressed and in cold pressed. And this has a bit of texture, the cold press, and that's the way I like it. So that's paper for my channel. And if you want to have a very decent student grade paper to paint on, this is really quite good. So let's take some of the stuff I didn't get today because I saved up for some paints working this summer. I have had a little bit of work this summer helping some elderly people out with their gardens. And so I saved up for this modern color mixing modern theory golden set. And there's more tubes in here than that came originally because I added a few extras. But it's a mixing set, so there's a cold and a warm of all the primaries. There's benzimidazolone yellow in medium and light. I only say that once. A naphthol red, a quinacridone magenta, an anthraquinone blue, a phthalo blue green shade, a white, and I'll talk about that. And then there's a phthalo green blue shade. And I have to say, if you miss a black in here, just take that phthalo green and mix with with a naphthol red, and you get a great black. So I'm a little disappointed in this because the first time I unscrewed this, the cap actually broke, but the paint seems to stay okay in here. It's a little dry there on the top, and I should use this soon. It's just a lot of paint to use very quickly, especially since it's titanium white. Good, so I bought 3 extra tubes. A cobalt teal, marsh yellow, and a graphite gray. Those are colors I currently like a lot. And when you buy this set, which is not particularly cheap, you get this huge poster. And there's an explanation of how it works. So they numbered all the colors 1 through 8, the ones that came in the set, and then there's recipes, so to speak, here how to mix all these colors. So you get an idea about like cobalt blue. You take number 5, which is the anthracite blue, and then you put a little bit of the titanium white in it, and then you can get a dark. This is if you add extra white. And so it's you get an idea about how you can mix different colors. I expect this is meant to be hung up on your studio wall or something next to your presumed what's it called, thing you put your painting on. Anyways, I'll think of that. I know what it's called in Danish, of course, but that won't help most of you. Your easel. Your easel and then your poster on the wall. I suspect is how it's meant to be. Anyway, so there was a clearance sale with Cobra Paint. And if you don't know what Cobra Paint is, it is water soluble or water mixable. I think it's water mixable oil paints. And there wasn't all that many colors left, but I think it was enough for me to get pretty much a primary set here, try it with 4 colors. So I got this yellow. See if I can find the place. Where are they? I think it's a lemon yellow. And two reds, a warm and a cold. Oh, it says right there. Primary yellow it says, and primary magenta and primary cyan. So I got the primaries. And then I got a pearl red, and I got a titanium buff white and a burned umber. Those are the colors that I often use. I got this titanium, buff titanium, because the white and the black was, of course, all sold out. One tube doesn't cost a lot, but these were a lot off. So I grabbed them because I have long wanted to try water mixable oils, and I got a video coming up about a partial solution for some of that. I'm really looking forward to trying those. So here is another refill and one watercolor. Refills of 3 colors of my Sennelier oil pastels. There's a white, I believe it's a titanium white, a dark gray of some kind. The names on here is kind of very obscure. Oh, dark gray and a pale ochre thing. Then I have bought this Maroon Brown from Sennelier. Not Sennelier. Blah. I can't talk. From Schmincke Horadam. And it should be a granulating brown, which could be interesting. I've just bought a 5 ml tube because I just want to try this color out, and if it's one I don't like, I don't want a big, huge, expensive 15 ml tube lying around. So, and the last thing we got is something I've been wanting to try for so long, ever since they announced they came out. The Golden So Flat acrylic paint. I got some acrylic gouache that I sometimes use, but I'm being a little precious with it because it's super difficult for me to get. I really like the acrylic gouache, but especially with Brexit and stuff, where I used to buy them from Jackson's, and it's just too expensive to shop at Jackson's and too difficult. There's all these toll and stuff they have to do, and these golden so flat is they're matte and they're flat. They dry flat, they say, and they should be super matte. And I've seen lots of people be very excited about them. So here's the colors you can get, and you can get 2 starter sets like this with 6 times 2 flow ounces or 59 milliliters in it. And there's one called Sing, and this one is the one that's called Pop. And I got this one because it has the black and the white, which are the 2 colors that I'm most interested in. And then the primary colors, or primary Naphthol Red Light, Cadmium Primrose, Ultramarine Blue, and a green, a permanent green in this cute little box. And as with anything golden, these are not cheap, and the store I can get these in, the only store as far as I know in Denmark that has them, they sell these sets, and then they sell is it 4 times as big a can. So I was thinking this would give me a chance to try them out. The Sing set has some secondaries in there and extra colors, and it's another 6 set, and it costs some more, probably because there's a Cobalt Teal in there. And so I've been really curious to try these, especially, as I said, the black and the white. And now if this works well, and I'm going to make a video where I'm trying these along with the Turner acrylic gouaches that I got. If that works out well, I might just say, okay, so flat is my new answer to acrylic gouache. Golden themselves will not call this gouache, but it has apparently some of the same qualities. So shouldn't we just change the setting and say, okay, let's try some stuff out? And why not try it on this? I love to paint on paper with acrylic. I've actually done it a lot the past year. I have not done it on camera because I've not been feeling much like painting on camera. So, but I have, and I have enjoyed it. So let's try with these ones first. I got a palette for acrylic here, and I'm a watercolor painter mostly, so it's kind of a little special for me to have a dirty palette that I don't have to clean. I sometimes just sit and pick paint off this one, but not because I have to. We need a brush as well. Maybe not the biggest brush in the whole well. This one will do. So where do we start? Well, let's start with the black because that is actually I got an idea from a painting in my head, and it revolves around black matte background. Got a bit of water over here, so let's wet the brush and let's try it. That feels like ink nearly. It's so black. It's so black and it covers so well. If you're used to student grade paints of any sorts, but probably like acrylic most of all, you can really feel the difference when you pay more for the paint. You get so much more pigment and much better coverage. It is unbelievable. So that is black with black. It's almost sad to make that go to waste, so I'll just lay it there. Looks like it dries up very matte, alright. The backside of it is cleaning the brush might be a challenge. And I started with the black because I want to paint the white on top of it later. They are so cute, these little tubs. Primrose. This would probably not be a yellow I would normally pick. It's fine. Oh, that's still black in my brush. That's still a nice yellow. And I can just paint over what the mess I made. That's a good sign. Let's get the black out of the way. I'm gonna save these after they're empty because they just call for being reused. If I buy one of the bigger tubs, I'm probably gonna just pour some over in one of the smaller tubs, so I don't open a big can of paint that slowly dries out every time I use it. Should probably just have picked out a whole bunch of colors or brushes. And that's already dry and it is so matte. I'll try and show you once we're done. Lift and peel. Oh yeah, I have seen this, that there's different ways to open them. Some of them has this thing where you can lift it or pull it. Just doesn't feel like it's working. Come on. There. Oh, it is so red. It looks so pale when you look at it because the plastic of the container is a little white. Yeah, I like this red. It looks like I cut myself. Oh, and you can just paint right over the other colors right away. It's not super. Okay, and I got red stains on my lid. That's a real studio sign there. When you got paint on all things in the studio, then you know you're doing something creative. Oh my gosh. Ultramarine Blue, definitely not one I would have picked, but it is the one that came in this set. Gosh, that red. It's just all over the place. Too transparent for my taste, but then again, most blues are. The blue pigments, except maybe for the cobalt, are quite transparent. So if that's a problem, we might have to back them with some. Oh yeah, let me leave some brush strokes in there and see how it should be leveling out. I don't know if it do it on paper though, because things work different on paper than on canvas. That's also why if you paint with acrylic on paper, you don't have to worry about how much water you add to it because it will bind to the paper anyways. Got the green. So what pigments are in here? It's a mixture. PY 184 and PG7. So it's a, oh, I think it's a Hansa yellow to be honest. And a phthalo green blue shade. And it's made a mid green. I am not a big fan of mixed greens. It's kind of redundant. They could have given me the PG7 green just straight up and I could adjust it myself. There's no need to. This is blah. It doesn't do anything for me. I can mix a green like that myself if I had the right colors. And yes, maybe I couldn't exactly hit that shade, but it doesn't matter. I can make a green that is close enough. That was barely on. But I know lots of people like getting a green in a primary set. And I guess this makes sense because that yellow and that blue will not make a very bright green. So if you need a bright green, it's okay, they put one in, I guess. And here's the white. Oh, and it drips everywhere. It's kind of a little bit runny, this paint. A little bit messy to open them up, but that's okay. So let's see if we can make a light green here. Just mixing some colors up. So that made kind of like a jade green with white. Let's see if we can make a pink with green and white. Yeah, that's gonna be a grayish color. That's okay too. A little goes a long way, I can tell, because I think I could do an entire painting just with the leftovers on the lids here. If you add some more white to this, we nearly get a skin tone. Okay, so let's try to make a green now. I bragged about making greens. Oh, Phthalo blue is the one I would usually use to make a green. Um, but you can make some muted greens with ultramarine if you like. So that's probably why they put the bright yellow green in here, because no matter what you do with this yellow and that blue, this is as bright as it gets. It's a little grayish, and that's good because if you want to do landscapes or anything that has to look kind of natural, the this is closer to something more natural. But I prefer the phthalo blue because then I can make bright greens if I want them, and then I can just use some red or other colors to tone them down a little bit. Really nice, easy to spread, and they dry flat, but you can still see the strokes that I made. Can we? I have to say one thing. Uh, I'm used to gouache and watercolor, and they rinse out of my brushes a whole lot easier than any acrylic does. It's always a challenge too. So let's take the yellow here. Some more of that red. Can we make an orange? That red. Pile red is, it is a pile red? No, naphthol red. Doesn't matter. Naphthol red and pile red both are really, really strong mixing colors. They really tend to dominate the mixture if they in any way can. And I bet you that this is a Hansa yellow that is not quite as strong. It is orange, yes. So if you want to make oranges with this, you need to take a lot of yellow and just a little tiny dabble of the red. If you want a yellow orange. So, absolutely okay. We can make it brown with what is left of the orange. Not really. That wasn't enough orange compared to the black. I have to say they are softer than any of the gouaches that I got. I haven't tried Holbein's acrylic gouache, but the Turner gouache I got, and it is a little stiffer out of the tube. I don't expect to be able to make a good violet out of this because that's a warm red. It is okay though. Actually quite okay. Let's add some white so we can see it. It's a little bit muted. That's okay. I don't use violet much. If I wanted to make pinks and violets and stuff, I would probably buy a magenta to add to this. And it might happen in the future because I quite honestly really like this matte surface. So let's go to the, and this is the Heavybody, by the way. It's just the plain old Heavybody acrylic from Golden. But don't take this Heavybody too much to heart. I thought it would be a lot thicker and harder to work with, but you can actually paint it out really flat without any problem and in thin layers. And that's how I prefer to work. I believe you can also put it on in what is called impasto in thick layers and kind of raised edges and stuff. I haven't tried that because that's not my style of painting, but I assume people can do that. But absolutely, I haven't used these very much because I get a little precious with them because they cost so much. But they are very nice paints and they're worth everything I paid for them. Absolutely. I was thinking about trying their open as well. That takes a longer time to dry. But I actually find that it is not necessary for me. It These are wet long enough for me to do what I need to do. My acrylic painting skills is not top notch. I am a watercolorist and it shows. I actually got 3 kinds of golden paints now. I got the 2 I've shown you here, Heavybody and flat. And over on my shelf I got a whole bunch of high fluid paints as well. And you can always mix and match if you need to. I actually got my magenta over there, and I got magenta here. I don't know if I can mix just a tiny bit of that into the flat without it losing its madness. The only thing, if I should say anything negative about Golden, and that is I hate tubes because the threads always get paint in them. So, add the green. And now we'll see how bad this white is. How much dry paint is in the top here. And something coming out the side. Oh. Considering it's been sitting there for a couple of months, I don't think this is too bad. Super sticky though. I don't know if I twisted that lid too tight. So there's yellow and there's phthalo blue. So here is the type of greens you can make with those. See, much brighter than that. And then if I don't like it to be that bright, then I'll just add tiny little bit of something red. And then I get a more muted green. So it's not at all hard to mix greens of all kinds of shades and types and stuff. And the pigments available is really good with it. So that's why I'm kind of like when they just sent me a generic green. We're gonna try and make an orange. See how dirty my brush is. More yellow, way more yellow. I have been playing with these and it's absolutely great paint. But probably not something that will. Yeah, and if you add green to that, then you get brown. That's okay though. And here's magenta and Indian Throne blue. More magenta. Some white. And you can see that's a way brighter purple than the one that we got with naphtha right there. I prefer Indian Throne blue over ultramarine a lot. It's a darker color. I think it is nicer to mix with. I like it better in its own. It has a better staining power. And if it's in a watercolor, it doesn't granulate as crazy as ultramarine does. So I bragged about making a black, and that was with this green. And this phthalo green in itself is kind of meh, but add just a little bit of that red, and you get an instant black. And you can make it. This is a brownish black because there's a lot of red in there. Add a little more green, and it becomes more of a cold black. But I mean, that's almost as black as that one over there. So that's where that green actually makes sense to have. Let's see here, we'll mix in some white to get a gray. That is a fairly cool gray. If we add a little more red and some white over here, we get a warm gray. And it's very easy to control. There's some other mixes for grays that is harder to adjust, but this very intuitively works out really brilliant. So I'm glad the white isn't ruined yet, but I gotta take it out and start using it. I got another tube of white lying around. I bought one tube of white to see if I liked the paint, and I used that to mix in with my student grade paints, and I was like, yes, I love this. So let's just for a quick show of things. This is probably the most expensive tube of paint I bought this year. It's a Cobalt Teal. And it's a single pigment color. It's PG50. And I love the Cobalt Teal in itself, but it's also a great mixing color. And Mars Yellow, I wanted to try because I wanted to see how it was compared to, what's it called? Ochre, yellow ochre. And then graphite gray because I like to tone things with graphite. See, lush turquoise. It's fantastic. And I got some other blue in the base of my brush still. And here's the Mars, what do they call it? Mars Yellow. It's more red than an ochre, so it's more like a sienna type of color, which is brilliant as well. And then the graphite gray by itself is kind of boring, but you can mix it with other things just to make them look a little bit antique, maybe. There was some marsh color on here still. Still an interesting way of toning things down, because that is so orange that is a complement to the teal, so it also gives us again a gray. I'll need some water here for it to mix. So those three gave us a cold greenish gray. Let's try again. Teal. And just a little dabble of the graphite. A little more. That was a lot more. But I guess you get the idea of this. And the idea about using graphite is not my own, it is because I'm in love with Derwent's Graphitint product. I absolutely love how it mutes things down. So what is graphite gray in itself? It's a bluish gray. So everything will lean towards blue, but a muted blue when you mix it in. So that is a very, very nice palette. So why the matte and not the Heavybody? Well, the finish is different, and I gotta move this out of the way and hope I'm not knocking anything off. Now, this is not totally dry, but it is dry to touch, and it got that kind of slight sheen to it. Whereas the matte is definitely matte. Here's the green I put on top of the other green. You can see it shines, but it's dry to touch. So the next test is, how is it to draw on top of, and I need to save my brush. Let's try here with graphite pencil. It goes on the matte, quite nicely. You just can't see it, So let's try up on the yellow. It goes on perfect because it got that matte surface. Now let's try the orange here. And it does kind of work, but it has a different feel to it. And if I grab a colored pencil from over back here, let's get a dark and a light. Colored pencil absolutely doesn't work very well on regular. It works a little bit better because this is paper, but it won't. You can't really get it to stick there probably. It's way better on a matte finish. Here's a white. Works really good on the matte. This is too wet. I can't do it on that dark here. That one is dry. You see it's kind of faint here. It won't grip, and especially if it's a thicker layer where you don't have the texture of the paper showing through anymore. So that's where the matte comes in, and it's just I like the velvety touch. Um, then we got just pretty much. I don't want to try the oil paints because I don't have a canvas ready to test that on. So this should be a granulating brown, maroon brown. Of course, the only clean water I got is not clean anymore. It's full of acrylic. Let's just see. The color is definitely good. The pigment number is invisible to my old eyes. I should probably put that in the description. If I'm not mistaken, this is a single pigment paint. It needs to dry before we can really see the granulation. And I don't know if there's so much acrylic binder in the water by now that it might affect how the watercolor is. But it's a nice brown. Got kind of a shade that will be okay for nature painting and the likes. And should we, just for the sake of it, see how this paper work actually with these? Because it can be really, really difficult to find paper that works well with these. Oh, it actually does work fine. If you get these watercolor pens, it often says, oh, you should use it with watercolor paper. I have to say one thing, don't use it with straight up cotton paper. That is way too thirsty. And sometimes it also, this, because it's a brush nib, is not too bad. But if you have hard nibs, then it can tear the paper if you try to layer it. And that's one of the reasons why I don't use them, because I layer stuff on top of each other. Let's just, because this is a massive long video, let's just quickly try out these. Nice and soft. I love the Cinnali Oil Pastels because they are so soft. They're also a little difficult to use because they are so soft, but Look at that, how you can blend and mix them and smear them together and add more layers. And it's brilliant. So that will also work on this paper. This is a different day, and I just got a sketchbook. It's an art creation sketchbook, and it's the A4-ish size. I already got another one. I've had this for a while, but only just started using it. And here I am using different mediums to test out different palettes, limited palettes I have picked out. And since this works out quite okay, I wanted one for just doing maybe some art journaling or something in. So it's the same paper in all of them. It's a little bit on the yellow side, but that's okay. And maybe, if I'm lucky, this scissor will get hold of that. Come on. It's so awkward opening things up on camera. I have seen other YouTubers struggle, so I'm glad I'm not the only one. It would worry me if I was. It's 140 GSM paper, 90 pounds. That's this strip on it. It's a sketch, pencil, charcoal, chalk, graphite, crayon, ink, and watercolor. It doesn't take a ton of watercolor, but enough. And if you want it to take more wet medium, you can give it either a coat of gesso or watercolor ground before you start. So yeah, it's nice. There's room for some big things in here. And that was it.